Hello and welcome back to another Rush Duel Links deck profile. With the release of the latest box Extreme Overlord, we have got a brand new maximum monster, Supreme Beasteam Magnum Overlord, and this card is pretty cool. Now the issue we have with this card is that we didn't get a new skill, so we are still using an old skill. Now I haven't really experimented with using any other skills so far, so we've basically just been using the Maximum Overload skill, but this skill is still pretty good. So this locks us to only having spellcasters and machines that have 2100 or less attack, which is quite restrictive, but it's not the end of the world when you see how we built the deck. We can send a maximum monster from our hand to the graveyard to place one monster from your hand onto the field face down defense position. Most of the time this will be a maximum monster that we summon. Then we can decrease the attack of one face up monster on your opponent's field by 800 until the end of this turn. That means our 1900 attack maximum middle pieces that aren't in maximum mode can now attack over 26s, which is like, okay, it's not fantastic, but it's fine. But the most important part of this effect is that during the end phase of this turn, we can return a maximum monster from our graveyard to the top of our deck. So this is a very slow way to keep getting maximum pieces back, but it's still a way to get maximum pieces back, and that is still better than nothing, because we can specifically tailor which piece we want to have during the next turn. But the maximum monster itself is actually really strong. So 3500 attack in maximum mode is fine. That's not great, but it's fine. And this card cannot be destroyed by traps. I mean, that's basically normal. That's basically standard for all of these maximums at this point. The L piece increases attack equal to the number of monsters on your opponent's field times 500. And if you have 10 or more monsters in the graveyard, it inflicts piercing. So this is going to be anywhere between 4,000 if your opponent has one monster, and 5,000 if your opponent has three monsters, and getting that piercing is also really important. It's what allows this maximum to actually get to your opponent's life points and actually close out games. And then the more controversial piece is the right piece, which is during the turn your opponent special summoned a level 5 or higher monster face up, your opponent can activate the effects of level 10 or lower face up monsters while this card is face up. So that is a really powerful effect. What I have found is that things like Eternal Galactica Oblivion and just the Light Galaxy deck in general don't really have a good way natively to beat this deck. Effectively, they have to summon out two Eternal Galactica Oblivions on the same turn. That way, one of them will get killed by our maximum because we can only attack once, the other one survives, and that's the only real good way I can see that they can beat us without including some other interesting tech cards like Talismanic Seal Array or something like Galactica Force maybe. Like there are a couple of cards they could use to potentially do it, but again, these are all tech cards that you wouldn't typically see in the standard build. But one thing we are playing in here is the original Magnum Overlord, and the reason for that is having extra targets for Heavenly Gift is really good, as well as there will be some situations where unfortunately Beasteam isn't going to be enough, but we can close the game out with Magnum Overlord. If we know our opponent's just going to kill us on the following turn, and we do have access to Machine Magnum Overlord, we can just summon this instead, use its effect to get a ridiculously big attack boost, and then just OTK our opponent. And most of the time this does catch people a little bit off guard, because they're generally trying to play around the Beasteam Overlord, and aren't necessarily paying attention to the monsters they're leaving in attack position. But what about the rest of the deck? So we're playing Amazing Dealer. Amazing Dealer is really good. This card has been really nice for us. When you draw this card later on in the game, it is completely dead. But if you do find it on that turn 1, maybe turn 2, it can be really powerful. If we have 3 or less monsters in the graveyard, we pay 300 life points, send 3 cards from our hand to the graveyard, draw 3 cards. So the idea is we just want to dump a bunch of stuff and then draw a bunch of other stuff. So typically what we like to do is get a load of maximum pieces in the graveyard, then find a load more maximum pieces, maybe activate the skill, and then grab whichever is the important maximum piece back to the top of our deck for the follow-up. Basically, this deck is designed to turbo through our deck as quickly as possible and just get to the Beasteam maximum. Now again, if we do find the Machine Magnum Overlord, we don't tend to summon it unless it's going to do something very impactful on that turn, so we could just hold on to it, or we just set the individual pieces. But summoning out Beasteam is always really powerful because it's a threat on its own right. It does floodgate your opponent and can stop them from basically clearing your board at all, so it's really powerful to get out as soon as possible. Next up, we have Imaginary Reactor. So Imaginary Reactor is very important in this deck because, again, we do need to hit 10 monsters in the graveyard in order to get our piercing damage, which is, again, really important because if we just summon this, for example, turn 1, and we have no monsters in the graveyard, well, we've now got to somehow get 10 monsters in the graveyard. And getting monsters into the graveyard when we already have a full maximum on the board can be quite difficult. We can talk about that a little bit when we get to some of the spell cards, but it can be tricky. So having Imaginary Reactor throw those cards into the graveyard early can be really, really useful. As well as we can dump the piece that we're missing, for example, then use the skill and put that piece back on top of our deck, can be really helpful. And obviously we can use it with Monster Reincarnation. Monster Reincarnation in general is really, really good in a maximum deck because you can grab the piece that you're missing. But we can also use Reactor to mill 2, and then we can put that to the bottom of our deck and then draw 2 as well, which again, digs much faster through our deck. Really, really strong card. So going on to the other spells, we do have Heavenly Gift. This is a brand new maximum spell card. This is typically only really seen in maximum decks, but this card is really, really powerful. So we can send any number of monsters from our hand to the graveyard. If the total levels of those monsters sent to the graveyard by this effect is 10 or higher, you can draw 2 cards. So the obvious way to use this is that we will send a level 10 monster. This card obviously goes to the graveyard itself. We draw 2. So we give up 2 cards, we draw 2 cards, we break even, we dig through the deck, we go and find our maximum pieces. That's really good. But Heavenly Gift is actually a lot stronger than that in this deck. Don't forget, we need to get 10 monsters in the graveyard. And the first line of text, send any number of monsters from your hand to the graveyard. So typically, if we do summon out a Beasteam Magnum Overlord early, and we don't have those monsters in graveyard, we basically just sit and accumulate a bunch of monsters in our hand, and then activate Heavenly Gift, dump as many of them to the graveyard as possible, get to that 10, and that will give us that piercing, which is really, really important to try and close out the game over the course of 2 turns. The Heavenly Gift, really, really powerful, and that has actually been our game plan quite a lot, is we've been able to get out a Magnum Overlord super early, and then we just basically wait until we get Heavenly Gift and a bunch of monsters, and we win the game on the spot. So really, really powerful. Then for our trap cards, we have basically gone for the best traps available. So Compulsory Evacuation Device is really, really good into pretty much every deck, except a mirror match. If we're in the mirror, this trap card is basically useless because they'll summon out their maximum, we'll flip this trap, it goes back to their hand, they just summon it again. So one good thing you can do with Compulse though into maximum decks is save it and do it aggressively, right? So you summon out your monster, flip over the Compulse, put the maximum back into their hand. That is the only really good way to use Compulse, and it can be really, really powerful in the situations, but there will also be situations where it just, unfortunately, doesn't save you from a maximum OTK, and you will just die, so not the best. You could swap this out for Negate Attack, but Negate Attack is really bad traditionally in this meta, because there are so many monsters that can pop back row. So right now we have Light Galaxy's Extra Plasma, they can just summon it and then just, you know, pop your Negate Attack, but you could just compulse it to get rid of it. There's Burst Wingman, there is the brand new Full Orchestra. There are a decent amount of cards in the very meta relevant decks that do have the ability to just pop back row, so Compulse is generally going to be better, and it doesn't matter that it's limit 1 because we're playing the Monster Reincarnation and not the Pot of Greed. And the same sort of goes for Shiny Shady. This card is basically useless in the mirror, but really good into everything else. So if you're expecting to just play the mirror, obviously I wouldn't use these traps, but when you're playing on ladder, you don't really know what you're going to go against, and realistically Shady and Compulse is good against everything else except the mirror. But this is the list. Overall, this deck has actually surprised me as to how good it's been. My win rate with this deck is actually very, very high. Off the top of my head, we did lose a red boot game where our opponent just kind of had everything and we just didn't have anything. We just kind of bricked. So realistically, I think red boot can have a pretty good matchup into this deck, but it kind of depends on what hands you draw. We did also lose to a spellcaster player who, once again, we had a kind of bricky hand. We could only get 2 low-level monsters in defense mode, and he just went full combo. He had, I believe, Curse to get the extra +2 as well, flip an extra card up, and just summoned out a big board of guys and killed us. So we haven't like won every single game, but the losses have felt like real brick games, and the rest of the games, which has been quite a lot, we're talking like 12, 15 games, we've basically just won the majority of them. So this deck has been really, really strong. But I will say not everyone in COG is playing like super competitive decks, so take that with a pinch of salt. But we did manage to take wins off of some of the stronger decks, like Heroes, like Galaxy. Overall, I would say if you're able to get to your Beasteam, you're going to have a good time. If you're not going to get to Beasteam, you don't really have much of a backup plan. Like we say, the Machine Magnum Overlord is fine to try and like steal a win, or depending on the matchup, you might specifically try and find your Overlord pieces. But overall, Beasteam is going to be the stronger option. Now again, there are lots of ways that you can still get completely blown up. TSA can be a real big problem. Your opponent could play Hammer Shot. There is a lot of things that can deal with this. We also ran into someone playing Mirror Innovator, and we did have the trap cards to protect us so that we didn't get completely blown up by Mirror Innovator. But Mirror Innovator is a card that can just boost its attack to over that 4,000 and just attack over it. So there are still many ways that you can lose your big maximum monster. It's not infallible, it's not indestructible, it's just kind of annoying to get rid of. But let's find some replays, and I could show you what I've been talking about.
Beasteam!